Now to get a view from the trenches of the recall, the editorial editor from the Colorado Springs Gazette, Wayne Laugesen. So glad for coming up.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to you moving into El Paso County so you can be nearby. I know we've talked about it for years. You've got children about the same age as some of mine.
Yeah, no, and our kids get along pretty well, so that's going to be a hoot. So
that's right.
I'll be able to ask you for milk and sugar and all that other good neighborly stuff.
Yeah.
It's a cool place. I mean, it's a cool district, Senate District 11.
Very nice. Yeah, it's downtown and parts of Colorado College. It's a very cool district. You'll like it.
Let's talk about the politics of that district. Now that the recall is in full swing, polls are open as we speak. Give me a sense of who's winning this battle. That, I don't have a sense. There are polls, but the polls have these small amount of voters, and those polls also don't include the people who can use the new election laws to legally come on in and vote.
Yeah, that's the sad thing. Any polling data that we have could just be meaningless given this horrible law that the Democrats gave us this year that Jon and Morse were big supporters of.
They were sponsors of this law.
They were sponsors of it, and they didn't allow, as one of your previous guests from the Secretary of State's office confirmed, they didn't even allow any sort of testimony on this thing, any meaningful testimony or examination from potential opposition. So yeah, we could get bus loads from both, from all. This isn't a two-sided thing either. This is multiple. This is a multifaceted election.
Let me be certain. I think the guys who sponsored the law know how best to exploit the law for their advantage than people who are unfamiliar with this new law.
Everyone else is playing catch-up. They're just going, "Oh, really? The law says that? Are you kidding? That can't be right."
I can really do that.
Yeah.
I can really do that.
These the people who sponsored this. Morse, being president of the Senate, is more responsible, is at least as responsible as anyone for this law, more responsible than most. He knew about this long before it ever became a law, long before it became a bill. So
what I find so fascinating was the start date of this law was going to be in fall of 2014, next year's election. But once the recall petition started circulating, somehow that bill changed the date to upon signature of the governor so that it would be in place for these recalls.
That's amazing.
Am I paranoid on this one, or is my and all it is a speculation that they know how to use this new law?
John, that's probably just a coincidence. Come on.
Absolutely.
But these recall petitions had been circulated and filed, and then the date changes. It's not really come on, that's a stretch.
That's a stretch. I'm stretching.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the outside influence. Now, the NRA has been the NRA is doing this and the NRA is doing that. Up until recently, they hadn't put much money into this.
They really hadn't.
It really frustrates me as an NRA member. I want them to bump this up in their list of priorities.
Yeah, if you go to the Morse Facebook page, a whole lot of people for Jon Morse, the first thing you're going to see is, we're up against the NRA. This is the NRA. So the pro-Morse factions have, from the very start, said this is the NRA coming in trying to influence a sliver of Colorado Springs, a small Senate district in Colorado Springs, and how wrong is that? The fact of the matter is the NRA has played a very marginal role in this until just last week when they finally put some real money into it, and it's still not that much money relative to the fact.
Too late.
It's too late to do any meaningful ad buys at this point. Long before that happened, we had billionaire New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg write a $350,000 personal check to help save Morse. We had another East Coast liberal billionaire write about $250,000 check, and there's all kinds of money coming in from various special interests throughout the country. And what this is really about? Why would the rest of the country care about a Senate district, a small portion of Colorado Springs? Because of the Colorado model. Because Colorado is this Western Republican state that has been changed to blue, and they call it the Colorado model. They want to export it to other states. Their next stop is Texas. That would be the big win, and they're not going to let this happen in Colorado. They're not going to let Jon Morse.
Let me echo that. They're not going to let Jon Morse lose, and that's why I believe he will win re-election, or pass the recall, I should say, because this billionaire, $27 billion, that's his net worth.
Right.
He cannot afford to let this guy lose. If he does, then other state legislators throughout the West are going to go, I don't want that. This guy survives, and
if he survives, it emboldens.
he becomes the poster child for new gun laws across the West.
Sure, we're going to see him on Rachel Maddow as a permanent, regular fixture. He's going to be trumpeted around by media types for, he's going to be a big deal. He's already a big deal. He's going to be a much bigger deal. And he will be used to embolden other politicians throughout the country who dare take on the Second Amendment. It will, if he loses, of course, the NRA and people who defend the Second Amendment will be able to say, if you do this, you're going to pay a price. If he survives, it's going to have the opposite effect times 10. He's going to have a very complicit national media, and they will trumpet Jon Morse as the example of a man who can take on the far, they'll call him he took on the hard right, he took on the NRA, and he'll be a hero.
What's odd is I've talked to people who are not into guns, but they're hacked off that Colorado is becoming this plaything for billionaires.
Right.
That this is a pawn. If we move this here to here to here, we're going to have a better chance of Western states, including Texas, and so now we're going to get involved. Now, the NRA has members in this district.
Yeah.
Just like the Colorado Education Association or the NEA, they come to the rescue of their members when they're in trouble. The NRA is an association. It's not that different in principle. They're coming to rescue those people. Michael Bloomberg's a guy.
Right.
And his agenda from New York, for me, that Pace McConney ad, New York City, that's
right.
That's what's going on. All right, give me some on the ground information. I mean, there's only so many doors to knock on, only so many mailers to send out. That's why I think the guy who sponsored this law, allowing people to vote in any district they want if they have that intent, gives him a huge advantage. What does it look like? Handicap it.
Well, it's hard to handicap this because there's not any really good, I haven't seen any good polling data on this. And I think that, what the recall people are fighting right now is election fatigue. There's been so much money put into this. So many doors have been knocked on, babies kissed, hands shaken. People are in that district are being bombarded with advertising, very negative advertising. They're election weary, and the concern, I think, if you're in favor of this recall, is that people vote against it because they want to send a strong message that they don't want these kinds of recalls. It's important to note, though, this has been characterized as an NRA thing, and it's about guns, and I think it was some gun rights activists who may have started it.
The NRA didn't do this recall.
Not at all.
They were gun activists.
That's right.
And I don't even know if it was the right political move to make, but it's what we have.
Well, it was a dangerous political move to make, but it's been made. There are a lot of other issues with Jon Morse, though, that you've got the Police Protective Association, that's the Colorado Springs Police Union, coming out strongly against Morse. You have Sheriff Terry.
Whoa. You have the Police Association?
Correct.
This guy claims he was a cop.
He claims he was a cop, and he does advertisements with a uniform that he wore for a short time, a long time ago. He met with my editorial board last year and said he wanted to, it was this year, it was right before the legislative session, and talked about how sad it was that as a cop he was forced to carry a gun. He fought against that. He did. So imagine calling the cops because there are armed burglars in your house, and Jon Morse shows up without a gun. That's the kind of cop Jon Morse was.
So the police association wants him out.
They want him out. He's opposed Jessica's law. He has opposed all sorts of legislation that they wanted that would make their jobs easier. They're annoyed that he's wearing a police uniform on television, acting as if he's actually been a cop anytime recently. Sheriff Terry Makita wants him out in a big way. Sheriff Makita is by far the highest vote getter in El Paso County. He's very popular, especially after the Black Forest fire and the way that he managed that. And he was very proficient in his management of that. And so you have some very respected authority in Colorado Springs saying this man is bad for Colorado Springs. He advocates billion-dollar tax increases. He raised utility rates on rural Coloradans. He's been accused of, and there's information to suggest he abuses his per diem. Takes the highest per diem of anyone in the Senate.
Is it fair to say that this recall isn't about guns but the gun issue was the flashpoint. It was the catalyst.
Sure.
That there were all these issues building, and then finally this was the last straw, which got an excited group out there to do something about
I think
it.
it's very fair to say that. I think given the gun issues alone, especially those that passed, bad as they were, I think those alone would not have caused this. That was, as you say, the last straw. And you have to consider the gun bills and other legislation that he tried to pass that did not get passed. The best thing that could happen for Governor Hickenlooper is for this recall to be successful, though he'll never come forward and say that.
How's that? How do you figure that?
Well, because Morse tried to put so much embarrassing stuff across his desk that he would then have to have vetoed. So you have a Democrat governor, a liberal Democrat in the governor's office, who's very pro-oil and gas, which already causes problems within his party. So he has used whatever political capital he has with his party, by edging up to conservatives and Republicans being in favor of oil and gas. So he doesn't have much more political capital to lose by vetoing Democrat bills. So there was a lot of work, I know for a fact, done behind the scenes from the governor's office to keep some of this junk from coming across his desk that was just flatly embarrassing. It was so radically left.
What was interesting about the gun issue that got me was all 62 elected sheriffs signed a position paper opposing them.
Right.
The governor wouldn't take a phone call from any one of them. They tried to meet with the governor, he wouldn't. Yet, as we found out later, he took a couple phone calls from none other than Michael Bloomberg. We had Joe Biden calling legislators on the floor while they were voting on this. Is this election about whether Colorado governs itself or whether we're the puppet of outsiders? And I think there's that flavor through it that's hard to articulate, but I think people get it.
We've done a lot of editorializing on that, and I actually don't think it is terribly hard to articulate given the amount of money that the likes of Bloomberg have put into this. And some of the bizarre legislation that Morse has introduced and supported that is so antithetical to everything that his constituents, that a majority of his constituents would stand for. Now, granted, this is a very liberal district for Colorado Springs. The Democrats designed it that way. It's Colorado College, it's old Colorado City, it's downtown. This is not traditional Colorado Springs. Anyway, one of the bills that was so radical that the governor tried to stop it was the one where you would sue gun manufacturers for crimes committed by guns. Imagine doing that with car manufacturers for drunk driving accidents.
Wayne, thank you so much. Thank you for being part of it. Remember, know your voter rights. Go to bringinthevote.com. Tell a friend about it. We might disagree on candidates and policies, but I hope we agree everyone has the right to vote. See you at the polls.